Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back to another stream. It's Wednesday evening, not Monday, not Friday, but yeah, we are back with another stream and maybe the last stream for this year. I think so, but yeah, it's again a special stream today because yeah, I have someone here, a guest for today, because today we're going to talk about accessibility, a topic that we all should know about. We all think we know a lot about it, or that we need to take a little bit more care about it, but we often don't do it and neglect it. And yeah, that's why I'm very happy that I have Manuel here today with me. So let's bring him right in. Here we are. Hello, Manuel.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. As I already mentioned, you are working a lot with accessibility. Can you maybe tell the viewers a little bit what you do, what's your work, and why is this a topic that you care a lot about?
Yeah, so I'm a front-end developer. I'm also from Vienna, just like Christoph, and I work for the city of Vienna. And there I write front-end code. I write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm specialized in HTML and CSS and web accessibility. And I'm also a freelancer. So on top of my work at the city, I'm also a consultant. And I do workshops, for example, lately with Smashing Magazine, but also in-house workshops. And I help companies build more accessible and also more scalable websites and front ends. That's what I do. And why? Well, I don't know, because I like quality.
I think that's already a good reason to do it because you enjoy it. And yeah, as you mentioned, we're both from Vienna. We know each other from your meetup, which you have in Vienna, Web Clerks. And
Oh,
yeah,
actually, no, wait. You know
sorry.
me from our meetup, but I know you from
Oh,
way back. I've seen you live many times,
oh,
like 15 years ago or something like that.
I'm getting red. Oh, you're so kind. Okay, yeah, that's very nice of you. But I think the first time we met for sure was at a meetup of yours, the Web Clerks. And yeah, since then I'm also following your journey. And yeah, it's pretty cool, the workshops that you did lately with Smashing Magazines about accessibility. And yeah, we talked about, I think, 2 or 3 times already that this stream is going to be a good idea to do it. And yeah, I'm glad we finally made it. And we both have about 53 minutes now to go. So I think we're going to dive right in. The plan for today is that we're checking out Larastreamer. That's the platform that we're building here on the streams the last 3 or 4 months together. And yeah, I know that we do the streams for maybe 1 or 2 months, but since then I haven't done anything regarding accessibility. I wanted it to be exactly as how we build it without too much thinking about it and giving you the possibility to go in there and see what we have done. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that I can learn so much more about accessibility, but yeah, I'm eager to learn what you have to say and also how you're going to show us how we can test accessibility. Okay, let me bring in your screen. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, sorry, can you share it again? Then I still need to assign it. Yeah, okay, it's here. Good. So, how do we start?
I would like to make a so-called audit. So I want to audit your website and see what I can find that could be a barrier for some people. And I'm not going to do it like I usually do it with my clients, because when I do an audit for my clients, I usually take the web content accessibility guidelines as a basis. So the web content accessibility guidelines, or WCAG or WCAG or WCAG, it depends who you
Wooka wooka.
ask. Yeah. um, it's a like a collection of guidelines and information that help us to make accessible websites. So these documents, these guidelines explain us web developers how to make accessible websites. So this is the standard by the W3C or by the WAI, the Web Accessibility Initiative, that explains how to make websites accessible, and it also contains some requirements. Let me just quickly just show you quick reference. So
Yes.
there are some guidelines, and for example, there's one called text alternatives, and it says all non-text content that is presented to the user has a text alternative that serves the equivalent purpose, and so on. So if you have an image, you need to describe the image. And usually when I make an audit for a client, I go through all these guidelines. So I go from requirement to requirement, and I check if the website fulfills these requirements. And if it does, it's fine. If not, I add a comment to a report and I tell them, okay, I don't know, for example, images on your website don't have alt text, no description of
Yeah.
the image, for example. Or there's other stuff like color contrast, or for example, there are also rules for if you're using a table for layout instead of a proper markup and CSS, then it also would fail, and so on, stuff like that. But we are not going to do that here, because I want to take a more practical approach here. I want to give you the opportunity, or to give you the tools to start testing your websites right now,
Yeah.
without having to bother with any theory and any guidelines or standards. But if you're interested, I would recommend the WCAG Quickref, which sums up those guidelines and all the criteria very nicely. And because it can be overwhelming, because there are many
Yeah.
documents, and some of them
It
are
looks
dated.
very long. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a lot of information here, but if you're interested, you could take a look. I mean, it's boring stuff, just like any other standard or spec. But if you're, if you're interested, it's not that boring. So
Yeah. The boring
what I
things that are useful.
yes. Okay, so we're not going to do an audit like I would do it with my clients. We're just going to, like, what I want to do is I want to find bugs. Just find bugs, and if you find one, then I want you to write an issue on GitHub or wherever you manage your code and your stuff, so that you can fix it. So that's what the outcome should be of this session.
For today, I have my notes here.
Okay, great. This will work as well. So one of the first thing that anyone can do, anyone should do, one of the easiest things that most websites don't do, is just to validate the markup of your website. Have you done that with this site?
Nope, I haven't.
No,
I,
of
I,
course
I
not.
think you probably mean like markup validators that are
Yes,
online. Yeah. No,
yes.
I haven't.
I'm saying of course not, because I don't. I usually like to forget it as well. I have a checklist where it says validate, and then I remember. But usually I like to forget it with stuff that I put online, and many people don't. But validating your HTML can be really helpful. Some people say that it doesn't matter because no one cares if the markup is valid or not. But sometimes the errors that the validation service lists can be really useful, and sometimes they also impact accessibility. So for those of you that don't know the validator, it's been around since forever. I don't know, many years.
And that's also the one that you recommend and use.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean there is also a project on GitHub called, I think it's HTML Validate, where you can configure the validation tool by with a JSON config file, and also run it in your build process, for example. Like I do that on my website. My website is hosted on Netlify, and if I push to Netlify, it runs this validation service.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah.
if there are errors on my website, the build fails. So I use that for the build process. But if I just want to go quickly check a site, I just use the official validation service by the W3C. And what you can do here is just paste a URL here, and it will run some tests. There's also a bookmarklet by DQ Systems, which you can add to your bookmarks bar and just click it, and then it will validate the site. So you don't have to switch to the validator.
Nice, yeah.
You can, do you have some show notes or something like that where we could add links?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then I will share the site to this
Yeah,
bookmarklet.
please send me all those links also from the guidelines like before, and we're all putting this into the show notes so that everybody later can then check out those sites as well. Yeah.
Okay, so if we go through the errors here, there are many errors, but for example, it says attribute X data not allowed on element body at this point. I mean, this is an error because it's not valid HTML, but
Yeah.
it doesn't concern us. It's just because you're not using standard HTML here. But it shouldn't make a difference for web accessibility or for anything else. It just doesn't matter. And it seems like what's the X thing? Is this like a
It's Alpine.js, the JavaScript framework? Yeah.
Okay. And add click. So it doesn't seem to be anything relevant. Many errors.
Yeah, this wire ID is also about Livewire, which I use, which is kind of backend tool to provide JavaScript-like features on the front end, but you write it in PHP. Very interesting framework, and that's what all this wire ID and those things are about. So also a lot of custom HTML tags.
Okay. This looks interesting. It says the text content of time was not in the required format. I have no idea what that means, but let's see if there's a time element.
Yes, I've been using it for, this one.
Okay,
yeah. So that's one of the examples where I know, okay, I'm writing here some kind of time. I know I shouldn't put everything in a div or a paragraph tag. And then I'm like, okay, I think there's a time element. Maybe I just put it in the time. And I think that's why it's in there. But I honestly have no idea if this is something that we should do inside a time tag, because I haven't checked.
I mean, you can put pretty much anything in here with the start and end tag. You can say now, or like you're doing it starts in 6 minutes from now, something like that. But I guess this error is about the fact that you're not providing a machine readable date. So this can be anything, but if you want to make it machine readable, you would have to add the date time attribute here. And I think the format is something like date time, something like this.
Date time. Okay. And how is this? Is this then being used to, for example, read it out loud, like in a date that someone then understands better, or how is this used?
Or honestly, I don't know how and if. It's just a machine readable, like just the machine readable information that anything could pick up, like a search engine or any other third party tool that crawls your site.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is. But this, I don't know, probably not an accessibility issue. And if we keep scrolling, there isn't too much here. So just so you know what I'm looking for, some of the errors are some errors that could be relevant for accessibility are, for example, there are duplicate IDs in your site. This could be an issue. Or when it says something like div must not be a direct descendant of the UL element or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're using HTML
so if it's wrongly nested.
Yeah. Or something like ARIA role XY doesn't exist, or ARIA role XY is not allowed in this context. So the validator will tell you stuff like that, and this could affect accessibility. But all the things that I see here aren't relevant. So
so I guess it's also more about just validating what is in there, but it's not like saying something like you're missing an area role here or there. So that's not the purpose of the validator, right?
Exactly. So it's just it just gives you an idea of the general quality of your markup, and but sometimes it also the errors that it throws will affect accessibility, or if you fix
Mm-hmm.
them, it will affect accessibility positively.
Yeah, I guess probably also if images don't have an alternative text, then this will also see here, right?
Yes, exactly. Or
Okay.
for example, if you're using the section element and the section
Mm-hmm.
element doesn't contain a heading, it won't throw an error, but it will throw a warning and tell you. So you're using a section element, you probably want to use a
Yeah,
heading as well.
a headline as well. Okay, I see.
Give me just a second because my battery is almost
Oh,
empty.
yeah. Yeah, in the meantime, I'm just saying hello to everybody who's already in the stream, like Gertjen is here. Let me just try to make the comments. Oh, again, this issue where I can't make them. Oh, here we go. So Gertjen is here, Adrian, so some familiar faces. Alex Can, hello, and yeah, it's also a good one. First issue for Manuel, Tailwind is being used. It's just a comment by Adrian because I think you once tweeted that I wouldn't say you're not a big fan of Tailwind CSS or you haven't used it yourself, and in the Laravel community we are using it a lot. So little side joke here by Adrian about
Yeah, okay.
Tailwind.
I mean, what I like to say is I had a client earlier this year, and I actually recommended that they use Tailwind because it really
Okay.
made sense in the example, because they had like more than 2 megabytes of JavaScript and a lot of repetition. And I said that it might make sense, and they would be able to remove multiple hundreds of kilobytes by using a utility class approach. So I don't hate it. I'm just critical. That's all.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, there are different opinions out there, and there are of course different frameworks and no frameworks. So
Yeah.
of course everybody can use what they want, but it's also okay to have opinions about stuff. So I'm not offended or something.
Okay, that's great. So just to sum it up, the Validator isn't an accessibility testing tool, but it would solve so many problems for people and also for me if you would just validate your sites, because
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
hurt.
it doesn't hurt, and you can catch a lot of low-hanging fruits, not just accessibility related, but pretty much anything that is somehow connected to the quality of your markup. But if you're talking about web accessibility, one of the, I would say, easiest ways is to use Lighthouse in Google Chrome. So if you have the Chrome browser, there's a built-in tool in DevTools called Lighthouse that most of you probably know. It allows you to perform all kinds of tests on your site. So you can check the performance or the SEO related things, or also the web accessibility. And what Lighthouse does when it checks the accessibility of a site, it takes the content on the page and it uses a tool or a library called Xcore, and it runs it on this site. And Xcore is just a collection of accessibility tests, I think written in JavaScript. And yeah, that's what Lighthouse does. And let's just run it. I'm just going to click here, generate report, and Lighthouse gives us a score from 0 to
Okay,
100.
doesn't look
And
too
this
bad.
score, yes, 96 is pretty good. And there's actually only one issue, and it says background and foreground colors do not have sufficient contrast ratio.
Oh, nice. You also get images here. Okay. Or
So do you know how the contrast ratio works, or how it's what the minimum ratio should be?
no, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So there is this algorithm for calculating the contrast ratio. I don't know how it works, and it doesn't really matter. But if you use, for example, white color on white background, you have a ratio of 1 to 1. So this is the worst possible ratio that you get. Or if you use black on black, or yellow on yellow, whatever. If you use black on white, then you get a ratio of 1 to 21. So this is the highest ratio that you can get.
All right.
And
Yeah.
usually what we are trying to do with normal text, so not bold and not necessarily large text, is to get the ratio of 1 to 4.5. This is the minimum usually we're trying to get. And it seems like in this button here, in this add streams to calendar, or in this live badge, let's just call it badge thing here, the ratio is enough. And you can see that Lighthouse lists these elements, and you can hover it, and you can, if you click, it will take you directly to the elements
Okay. Yeah,
panel,
that's nice.
and Yeah, that's
Did
pretty
you
great.
did we also see what the ratio was like, or do you know when Lighthouse is saying this is not good enough?
It doesn't say it here, but there are at least 3 ways I can show you where you can see the ratio.
Okay.
The first one is if you use the arrow here to inspect items on the page,
Yeah.
and we have the button, you can see that it gives you all kinds of information about the font and the color and so on. And in the lower part of this tooltip, it says
Oh, yeah.
accessibility and contrast is 3.24.
I've never seen this.
Yeah, and it also actually
Mhm.
contains some more advanced information. For example, it says the name, so the accessible name is add streams to the calendar. So if a screen reader user who uses a software to read content on a page, usually but not exclusively blind people, then this is what will be read out to them. Add streams to calendar. And the role of this thing, it looks like a button, but it's not a button, is link. And the tooltip tells me that this is a link and not a button. And it also says
Okay.
that it's keyboard focusable. So if I use a keyboard, I can access this.
So what do you think? Is this a link or is it a button?
I mean, it
What's
looks like a button, but it depends what it does. Let me see. Add streams to calendar.
what would you
Okay, no.
assume that it does? Yeah, so it opens up
Okay,
the
this is the
calendar, or
button.
you can click the icon on the right, and then you have, I think, a different option to choose from. But is this, if you want to add something to the calendar, I would assume it's more like a download. Is this a link or is it a button?
It really depends what triggers this prompt here. Is it just a link, the link that you're using, or is it JavaScript that opens this dialog here?
I think it's just a link. Yeah, you can try the link.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah, if it's a link,
yeah.
then it's a link.
Okay, if it's a
So
link, then it's a
that-
link. Makes sense.
I mean, if there's a destination, a URL, and it points to a site usually, or to an email, or
Yeah,
to a
okay.
number, or in this case, it's a web calendar file, then it's a link. If it performs some kind of JavaScript, like, I don't know, opening the navigation on a mobile menu, for example, or like here, opening a modal
Yeah.
window, then it's probably a button. I mean, it could be a link, really depends, but it's probably a button. If it triggers some kind of JavaScript, usually it's a button. Or for example, here, if I'm pressing the close icon here,
Yeah,
it's
this
a
is a
button.
button. Yeah. Okay,
We
got
could,
it.
we could just use this tool that we've got to know right now and see what the accessible name of the button is, because I
Oh,
told
yeah.
you that here it says add stream to calendar, and this is pretty straightforward because the accessible name of this link is
It's just
the link
text.
text.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So let's see what we get here.
No name. Or do we have one?
Okay, that's an SVG, and this is a div. Okay, here's the button. Okay, so here I can't focus. I can't reach it here. Another way of accessing this information that's in the tooltip
Yeah.
is if you click on an element in the Elements panel. There is in the lower part here where the Styles panel is, on the right side, there are some arrows, and hidden there is an accessibility panel. Yeah.
Of course, it's hidden.
Of course, yeah. And let me just...
Static. There is some static text.
Okay, so here you can see computer properties. So this is accessibility information. So information that gets sent to assistive technology. If I can just quickly explain that. So when you write an HTML document and you open it in the browser constructs the DOM, so a representation of your HTML specifically for the browser. And we can use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM, and the DOM also tells us about the elements in the site and also about its children and so on. I guess probably most of you know what a DOM is. And there is another representation of our HTML called the accessibility tree. And this is specifically for assistive technology like screen readers. And this doesn't contain the same information as the DOM, but some things are the same. So the accessibility is a representation of your site containing the accessible names of your elements and also the roles and also some properties. So for example, it will say, here's a button, and the accessible name of the button is close. And in this accessibility panel here, you can access this information. So if I click the button, I see here what probably will be provided to assistive technology. So it tells me the accessible name of this button is close, and it's titled by its contents. So it means that somewhere in this button, there is a text with the information close, and the role is button. So it looks right to me. And if we check it here, we can see it's a proper button element. It's fine. And there's also text in here.
The close,
and
yeah.
this text, yeah, it's just a screen reader, just hidden from, visually hidden and only accessible to screen readers. So if I remove this class, you can see that the text appears.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. So
okay,
great
I'm glad. Yeah, I have to say, that's something that I copied from Tailwind UI components. Not sure if you know that, but Tailwind CS has also the components which you can buy, and there are a lot of components like those modals, like layouts stuff, and it's very nice to change as well. And from what I know is they also have, of course, a big focus on accessibility. So the only thing that it's right because I copied it from them. But it's good now to see it and to actually see how I can also check it myself for the next time when I'm writing something like that on my own.
Yeah, it's really great to hear because if the whole thing is from them, they're actually doing a great job because it works really well. Not just the close button, but the whole thing. But I will talk about that later.
Okay, cool.
So what I said that there are at least 3 ways of checking the contrast ratio. The first one is this tooltip. Another one is that if you are in the styles panel, you can find the color property for this button. Let me just filter it here. Yeah, it says color is RGBA, so and so. And unfortunately, because you're using custom properties here, I can't do what I want to do. So I'm just quickly going to replace this custom property with the actual value. You can see now that a square pops up here. And if I click that, you can see the color that you're using for the text, and it also gives you the ratio.
Okay. See that as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it tells you if you want to comply to WCAG 2.1 AA, this is like the standard that most websites should follow, then yeah, it doesn't conform. So it's 3.24 and it should be 4.5. And what's nice about that is that you can actually use the color here. And if you move it below this line, you can see that
directly see how it's changing, yeah.
Yes. But that's probably not what you want. So you want to have this white color. So what I would do here is to experiment a little bit with the background color or something like that. Like,
yeah, so maybe a little bit darker background or...
Yeah. So I would just, I mean, this is my quick and dirty way of getting the color. Yeah. So you can use a darker color here, for example, and you will see that now it's probably, okay, not good enough. You would have to test it, but that's how you could do it. Another thing is, and this is brand new, I'm not sure if it's in the latest version of Chrome or if it's still an experiment, but there's a thing called CSS overview. And you can get an overview over your site. It will provide you with some useful information. So how many style sheets are you using? How many rules? How many DOM elements?
That's interesting, yeah.
And this is like really brand new. I think it shipped. Yeah, it's still an experiment. You can see it here.
Yeah.
It's still an experiment. But you can enable it in stable Chrome in the settings, in the experiments, as far as I know. And it also lists all the colors that you're using on your site. And there is a section for colors that have some
contrast
kind of
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said,
that's
AAA,
really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, AAA doesn't concern us. It really doesn't matter. What's interesting to us is the AA stuff here. So we can see in this button, this doesn't work. And also this gray text here could be fixed.
Could be better, yeah.
Yeah,
So
could be better.
I know when I was working at Lichtenegger, we had one project which was AAA, and I still remember it was really hard to get this right. I didn't have to do much on the front end, but I remember the project. What do you say? When is AAA needed? When is AA needed? Are there any rules for that, or?
So if you're talking about the law, then at least in Austria, AA is the standard, and it's usually what most websites try to achieve. That care about accessibility. And sometimes there are websites that have higher standards, but that's just because they have higher standards for themselves, and they want to try to get AAA. So I've never worked on a AAA site, and usually AA is fine.
And do I also see on the guides which you have shown us, is there also a different section for AA and AAA? Yeah, okay.
Yes, exactly. So it's actually pretty nice because there's a filter, and you can say, please just give me a single A, double A. I don't want to see the AAA criteria. Yeah. I'm not interested in Flash and Silverlight, and also the PDF stuff. Shout out to ActionScript 3. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it was really, really good times.
Yeah, definitely. So, and then it just lists all the AA criteria and single A criteria. So we don't have to bother with the
Okay, yeah, cool. Just good to know that you can find it all there and filter it there.
Yeah. Okay, so that was Lighthouse, and it just said, yeah, okay, there's some accessibility, there's some contrast issue, and
contrast
that's it.
issue, yeah. Okay, that's something. Oh yeah, sorry, one other question which also came in my head. So when you see those things about the ratio, do you often have to go into some discussions with designers? Because this, of course, I'm pretty sure that the designers out there, so I want this red to be used on the website, so we can't change this. This is our company red or something like this. Do you often run into issues like that and then have some discussions with design team or something like that?
I used to. Now, not that much because I work for the city of Vienna and we just have to. So
yeah,
there's
okay,
no
it's
about
easier.
that. But yeah, of course you have that. Sometimes you have corporate design and colors that just don't work. And it depends on how bad it is. So, I mean, these checks or these ratios are just numbers. Sometimes a high ratio doesn't mean that the thing is actually accessible, because it just this ratio, this algorithm isn't perfect. So sometimes even if the number is above 4.5, it doesn't mean that it's accessible. And on the other hand, if it's below that, it could also be fine. So I'm not dogmatic with that stuff. So if it looks fine, if the users don't complain, then okay, let's just do it. But if I see something like on your side, like this grayish color on the gray background, I would try to talk the designers into using a brighter color here, because for me personally, that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's a smell already for you seeing that.
Yeah, a little bit, because not just because I don't know, because of the ratio, but just looking at it with my completely like with my eyes that have at least 20 years of computer experience, and yeah, this could be brighter.
Okay, yeah, good to know. I'm making a list for all of those things, and maybe I'm going to do another stream in the next year where I'm going over all the things that we talked about today and try to fix them. Maybe with you as a guest again, if you like or not. But
yeah, definitely. One thing that I have to say is, and it's really important, because in another at a meeting recently, someone asked me, how do you fight with designers properly, or how do you explain to them that it's important to make shit accessible? And the most important thing is to don't fight with your colleagues, don't fight with designers. Just explain to them what it means and why it's important. And usually this works if you just explain, that this isn't just an issue for some people that have low vision, for example, but it can concern any of us. It can concern our parents, or it can concern someone else,
Yeah.
or it can concern us if we are using a smartphone and we are outside and the sun is shining and stuff isn't as clearly visible as it's indoors, for example. Then it's much easier for them to show empathy or to relate to your concerns. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
So I
that's
wouldn't say
always good not to fight with your designers.
yeah, definitely. So I wouldn't say this just looks awful or it doesn't work. It's not compliant or whatever. I would just say that some people will probably have issues, and yeah.
Could be improved.
Definitely. Okay, so we have Lighthouse here, and Lighthouse is nice, and I usually use Lighthouse to get a quick overview of the overall quality. So I usually just run all the tests, and if I see that the performance is really bad and accessibility is bad and the best practices and so on, I can tell that they probably didn't test the website properly and that the overall quality of the site isn't that well. But if I want to dig deep, if I want to get more out of the X-Core engine that powers Lighthouse, I switched to another tool, which is called X DevTools. And X DevTools also uses the X-Core engine, the engine that they built, but it's a little bit different because Lighthouse uses X-Core, but it only uses a subset of the rules, so it doesn't check everything. DevTools checks all the rules, and they also don't just check stuff that is relevant for WCAG and for the WCAG criteria, but they also have some best practices that you could follow and fix if you want to. So X DevTools is a free tool. You can download it for Chrome and Edge and Firefox, and you can just scan all of your page. There's also a paid version where you can just scan components, for example, and where they also provide guided tests where they explain how to test things. It's pretty cool. I didn't buy it because I don't believe that I need it. But yeah, could be interesting for some of you. Anyways, I'm just going to click this button and X will test the site just like Lighthouse did. Okay. I don't know what's happening. Let's try again. Okay. And now you can see that there isn't just one issue, but 14 issues. Or actually, it's 6 issues. The difference here is that X lists all the elements affected. So it doesn't just say, okay, there's one issue and the issue is, there's not just one group of issues, which is low contrast, but there are 9 affected elements. And you can see here that you can toggle these best practices on and off. So if I toggle it off, then there are in total of 12 like really relevant issues. Yes. Just a quick explanation here. So it says I found 14 issues. 4 of them need review because X tries to not have false positives. So sometimes if they're not sure if the issue they found is actually a real issue, they will say, it needs review, please check it. It might not be an issue.
Okay, yeah.
That happens sometimes, for example, if you have a background image and there's text on that background image and X isn't sure if the contrast ratio isn't good enough because it can't tell how well the text color works on a background image, for example. Yeah, and then it has these 4 categories: critical, serious, moderate, and minor. And you can click, for example, if you just want to see the serious issues, it will filter this list below that, and then you can just look at the serious issues. But let's look at all the issues. There are some interesting things here. If I'm too quick, tell me, please. I'm just going to talk.
No,
okay.
I think the pace is good.
Okay, great.
Following closely.
Great. So it says here, elements must have sufficient color contrast.
Yeah.
We've already learned that. And there's an issue description here, which is nice. It tells you what's going on. It tells you which element is affected. It also shows the source. And it also tells you how to solve the issue. So it says, if you want to fix this issue, then you need to make sure that this element, which has a ratio of 3.2 or 3.24, should have at least a ratio of 4.5. And what's also nice is that you can, at the very top, you can highlight the element. So you can see
that's nice.
which element is affected.
What we're talking about, yeah.
Exactly. And you can see that there it also provides similar information to the native tooltip in DevTools. And you can also jump directly to the elements panel and inspect it. So, and what's also really great, and this is a great learning resource, especially if you're starting, you can click on more information and this will bring you to a website called DQ University. So DQ is the company that built Xcore and the X DevTools, and they also have this thing called DQ University. And for every issue, or for every test they run, they have a page where they explain why they're running it and how you can fix it and why it matters and so on. So this is a fantastic.
Okay, that's nice.
That's a fantastic learning resource. So if you're getting started and you run some tests and you don't know what the test means, you might find the information in here. Okay, and you can see here there's a pagination, so you can jump from all the items that are affected, and quickly browse through the page and see where there are issues and where you should fix stuff. Let's look at
what's next. Links.
It says,
links with the same name must have a similar purpose.
Okay, this is a bit.
What does this mean? Yeah.
It's a bit confusing, the message itself. It says, ensure that links with the same accessible name serve a similar purpose. Okay. Now, this is something about, what this means is there are links on the page with the same accessible name, with the same text. And usually we try to avoid redundancy. We don't want to have too many links with the same accessible name, with the same text. This is coming from, just imagine a news page, for example, with teasers to the latest articles. And it says, on an article, it says, click here. And on the next article, it says, click here. And on 50 other articles on the page, it says, click here. And this can be confusing because click here, what do you want me to click? What's the meaning of click here? Because if you're using a screen reader, for example, there are different ways of navigating a site. And one way is to list all the links on the page. And if all the links on the page say click here, it's really hard to tell where this link will bring you.
What it does,
Yeah, exactly. So this is why this test exists, I would say, I guess. And X has discovered several links with the same value here. And you can see that this one is highlighted, this building a Laravel data mapper ORM, episode 1. And it says the role is link, so it's a linked image, and the accessible text is video thumbnail.
Yeah.
And if we inspect that,
we probably have that same name with every of those links.
Yeah. So if we look at the image here, you can see that the alt attribute of the image, so the description of the image, is video thumbnail. And in this case, the alt attribute of the image serves as the accessible name of the link. So the link text comes from the description of the image because there is no other text in there. And as video thumbnail, and on this as well.
Sorry, I just lost my AirPods. Give me a second. Okay, so in this case, probably the alt text is not good enough because it's the same for all of those images, and then it's being used for the name of the link. So it's a good idea to provide a better alt text for all those thumbnails, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because you want to make them unique, usually. But then again, we have some redundancy here because there is a link that points to the YouTube page or to the video, and there's another link that does the same thing. So we have 2 links that do the same thing, and usually we try to reduce redundancy. But the problem here is if we wrap the whole thing in a link, then it will read out everything at once. It will read the description of the image, it will read the heading here and all the codes and the number and so on. So this is also not a good solution. And the problem here is there is no, that's something that isn't fixed. We don't have proper ways in HTML, CSS, or JavaScript to make a whole card or a whole area, a whole teaser block, whatever, accessibly clickable with just one link. There are some solutions. So if there is a link, then you could use JavaScript and put a click event on the image. So you just have one link, but the area is still clickable. The problem here is, of course, you can't use right click anymore, for example. So there are some issues with that. I will provide you with some articles written by Adrian Rosselli, Hayden Pickering, and some other people where they talk about block links. Really interesting stuff, and still not solved yet. Yeah, but
Okay,
the
so as
least you could
always,
do
there is
here
not the right one thing to do, so it often depends, and there is no one solution.
Yeah, unfortunately. So the what you could do here is at least use more descriptive alt text, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just quickly want to switch to Safari and use the screen reader, the built-in screen reader in macOS called VoiceOver, and so show you what this means. So what the practical effects are of redundancy here.
Yeah,
So
I think that's really interesting to hear.
So if you use a screen reader, you don't just necessarily read text from top to bottom. So you don't use the software and tell it, please start at Larastreamers and read the header and then read the teaser and then read everything until you reach the end of the page. You don't do that. I mean, I guess you don't do that. I don't do it usually. I scan the page
no one does.
Exactly. Yeah, we look at some pointers, and we try to find information. We scan it. There might be some indicators that we're looking for in order to find the information, and this is also what screen reader users do. So they can do that. They can start at the very top, but they also have different ways of navigating on a site. For example, they could just navigate by headings. They can list all the headings on the page and say, okay, list all the headings and please jump to today. I want to start at today. I want to know which streams are today. And this is really awesome. So headings are incredibly important. If there's one thing that you want to fix on your side, not your side, Larastreamers, because you're doing a great job, but the people who are listening, then try to create a great outline for your pages by using headings. Just think of when you were in school and you maybe had to write a thesis or like just like maybe a simple paper, whatever. And usually on the first page you have the title, and on the second page you have the index. And if you just look at the index, you can tell what the whole thing is about just by looking at that, because it lists all the chapters. And this is how your document outline with your headings should work. So if you just list all the headings on your page, it should tell you what the page is about. Let me just quickly show you how this could work in VoiceOver. So I'm starting VoiceOver here, and you will hear a robotic voice reading stuff.
VoiceOver on Safari, Larastreamers window, Larastreamers web content as keyboard focus.
Now I could just use key commands and jump from item to item on this page. I will do that quickly.
In Larastreamers web content banner, navigation, visited link, TV, Larastreamers, visited link, home, submit button, visited link, streamers, link, archive.
So you can see that it announces the accessible name of the element and also the role. So home is a link and it is a visited link. I've been there already. Submit is a button and it says that it's a button, and so on. So this is one way of navigating, and another way is, at least in VoiceOver, is the so-called rotor. And if I press Shift U,
links menu, headings menu,
you can see that here it lists all the headings on the page, for example. And the first thing that I notice is there is no H1.
Yeah.
So usually you want the H1. It doesn't really matter for search engines; they don't care. But the H1 is the most important heading on your page, and it usually tells screen reader users what the page is about. So it would be a nice thing to have an H1 here.
Do you? Quick side question. Because I've often seen people use the logo as an H1. Do you recommend this? Or do you think it's important to have on the page somewhere below an H1, which is then like the main headline?
I would say you can use anything as long as it describes what the page is about. So if the logo, for example, describes what the page is about on the homepage, then it might work. Why not? But it probably won't work on other pages. So on the page home, you probably want something like Larastreamers, streams for Laravel, whatever, developers. On the streamers, page, you probably want streamers as the H1, on archive, and so on. So it doesn't really matter which element or where the content is coming from. It's important that it describes the page properly.
Yeah, I'm just asking because I've seen with many of those kind of landing pages, the biggest thing on the page itself, like here, watch other developers code live, is not like the name of the page or what it does. It's more like a catchphrase. And then I'm always thinking, okay, should this be H1 because actually it's not really describing the page. It's more like a catchphrase for everybody who's seeing it. And what then would be the best case to use in H1? If I should then put it maybe on the logo and have Larastreamers there because I think it's text up there, and if this is better, or maybe somewhere hidden in H1. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so if you're using it on the logo, it wouldn't make sense anymore on the other pages. It would only make sense on the home page because Larastreamers is the title of the home page, I would say, but not of the archive page, for example. Using a hidden heading could work. So generally, if you ask me, I would say don't hide stuff, show it, because everyone benefits from it. So you could also argue that everyone would benefit from a proper heading here, maybe. But if there's no other way around, or if you believe that it's not something that everyone would benefit from, then you could use the same class that you're using or that Tailwind is using here for the close button and puts the heading in the DOM. So it's there, it structures the page, but it's just visually not visible. You could do that. But generally, I would avoid it.
Yeah, I guess also for this side, it would probably make sense also to watch other developers code live on H1 because it somehow describes also what the kind of tagline is for this side. So I think we could just change it here.
Yeah, probably. Yes. And now what's really cool is I can use the arrow keys to just browse the headings.
Heading level 2, 2 items. Heading level 3, TV. Heading level 2, today.
And that's really cool because it tells me the accessible name of the heading and also the level. So the levels are really important. And you are actually doing a great job here, except for the H1. But other than that, it's well structured because it starts with H2 and then H3, and then maybe there's an H4, and then you go back to H3 and then to H2 and so on. So just like you look at the index of your paper that you've written at school, you also have a proper structure there, and you want it with your heading. So you usually want to try to avoid to skip headings. Yeah, and you're doing that well here.
So let me just show. What's this mode called again? It's Rotor or Router?
Rotor. Yeah. Okay. But it's just in NVDA, which is another screen reader for Windows. It's called Elements List, for example. So it's just how it's called in VoiceOver. Another thing you can list. Another thing you can list is landmarks, and this is really cool. Landmarks are larger areas in your page, important areas like the header, for example. And what you can see here are the ARIA roles of these landmarks. So the header element in HTML has an implicit role of banner. So this is the banner role. So this is the header of your page. Navigation is the implicit role of a nav element. Main is the main element. Content information is the footer element. And navigation is another nav element.
So sorry, one side question. We're seeing here 2 times the navigation. Is this already an issue? I guess if I would have used a role for the navigations, then I would see a better name for what kind of navigation it is, or...
you don't have to use the role because the fact that it says navigation here already implies that it has a proper role. So the role is navigation, and with a nav element, you don't have to explicitly define role navigation. It comes with the role by default. But you're right, because we have 2 navigations here, and I can't tell what these navigations are about. So this is the primary navigation, and
content navigation.
This seems to be like the footer navigation or something like that.
VoiceOver off.
Let me just quickly switch to my sites. I mean, I know it looks ugly and it's also not perfect in terms of accessibility, but I'm also have 2 navigations here, and I want to show you how I'm doing it. It's also not perfect, but it's just to give you an idea.
VoiceOver landmarks menu.
So you can see I also have a banner, I have a navigation, I have an additional region here, it doesn't matter, a main element, also a footer, content information, and it says
Name. Change page navigation.
change page navigation. I just named it like that. So this navigation has an accessible name. And I'm doing that here.
Voiceover off.
I'm doing that here by, just a second, by using ARIA label. Can you see that if I zoom in here?
Yeah. ARIA label change page.
Yeah, so just by using ARIA label, I'm naming the navigation. So if you have multiple landmarks on your page, for example, multiple aside elements or multiple nav elements, you can use ARIA label to give it a unique name. So it's easier to differentiate what kind of navigation this is.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think it's interesting for me because mostly when I write HTML, I don't think about it also because I haven't seen what it looks like when you show this list. But as you've shown me the list, I immediately saw, okay, we have 2 times navigation here. We can improve this, yeah. But if you don't see it or don't make yourself familiar with those tools, then yeah, you probably don't get it and it doesn't get burned into your head. But I think from now I know about navigations, they should have a area label to better distinguish them.
Yeah, exactly. So when I started with accessibility, I mean, I only started like 5-ish years ago. This also, like just seeing that stuff, how the elements get interpreted by software, made it click for me, because then I understood, and it happens every week when I learn something new about HTML. Then it just clicks, and then you understand why you are using it. Why should I use a header? Why should I use a button element? Should I use a nav element? Why not just use divs for everything? And now you can see it in action, which is pretty cool. All right, but we were on your site, and what I actually wanted to show were the links.
Voice of landmarks menu, window, links menu. You
So-
are currently in a voiceover.
So here I'm listing all the links, and you can see
Visited link. TV, Larastreamers. Visit link. Heading, link.
now we have several of those live video thumbnail links, which don't tell anything about the video, the actual video that it links to. Yeah.
Voiceover off.
And this is
So you
something that we said we could fix with a better alt text, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Because the alt text here serves as the accessible name for the link.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to show you a browser I'm using. They're not paying me, so it's a paid product. I paid myself, so it's not a paid ad. But I just want to show you this browser because it's really cool. It's called Polypane, and it just looks
What's the
like
name?
any other Polypane.
Okay. Never heard of it.
It's developed, and I know the guy. His name is Killian, and he made this really cool browser. It's called Polypane. It's a browser for developers. Okay, I'll just. And he also knows a lot about web accessibility, and he added some accessibility features to the browser. What's going on? Is there something wrong with my connection? No. Okay. So it's polypane.app.
Polypane.
Yeah. And what's really cool about Polypane is that, I mean, I will just show 2 or 3 things because it's pretty cool for developers.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm in full layout mode here, but I can also go in this mode here and display the site in different sizes. And if I double click here somewhere on the page, I can say, okay, give me another pane with, I don't know, iPad mini 6th generation, whatever. And scrolling is synchronized.
Oh, that's nice, yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. Or I could say, you know what, scan the CSS of your site and give me all the breaking points you are using in Tailwind for your site. So this is just now based on your breakpoints. This is one thing that's really
cool, yeah.
Yeah, and for every single pane you can have settings, and you can also, trigger dark mode. You don't have dark mode, right? You can trigger dark mode
Not
here,
yet.
for example. and emulate stuff. And another thing that's really cool is that I only started using it a few days ago, so I'm not really the best user here, that it has this outline option. So I can say, give me all the links on the page. And so it does the same thing
Yeah,
as
like we've seen before.
like the voiceover did, and it also says, give me all the headings, for example, and it tells, hey, there is no H1,
Mm-hmm.
and I found some duplicate headers. This could also be an issue. Or it lists all the landmarks and it tells you, hey, there are multiple navigation landmarks. You probably want to label them. And also gives you the document outline, and it tells you the nav is untitled, yes. And that's actually pretty cool. And it also has X built in, so you can run the accessibility tests as well. Yeah. So you don't have to use the screen reader because it takes some time to learn how to use a screen reader. You could, for example, also try Polypane, and it has some.
Already helps, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of such tools because I believe if you make those things as easy as possible, you will get more people to use those tools, like you've shown me from Lighthouse, the accessibility feature, which I think I haven't seen before. Or maybe I've used it, but not directly seen it before. But yeah, the more easier it gets to test your site for accessibility, I think this will also help more people to use it. And it's cool to see that there is such an editor out there and browser out there that helps you like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Also, X tells you ensure landmarks are unique. So this is about the nav elements, and that your page should contain a level 1 heading.
Yeah.
It's already past 8, so I will just quickly fast forward and tell you about my most favorite tool. It's one of the most powerful tools for accessibility testing, and it's the tab key. So
let me write that down. Tab key. Okay.
I actually wrote an article. It's called one of my favorite accessibility testing tools, the tab key.
Tab key.
Where I summarize what kind of information you will get by using the tab key. So I will just press tab on your site, and you can see this beautiful outline here, this blue outline, and this tells me that this outline is a default outline in Chrome. So I'm switching to Firefox because the outline in Firefox sucks. And you can see here that now this is not as clearly visible as in Chrome.
Yeah.
This is what I want to use as a baseline. Okay, so I'm pressing the tab key because I want to see if all the things that I can do with a mouse are also possible with the keyboard.
Yeah.
So, and before I do that, I just hover over the page, I click some stuff to see what kind of things I can do as a mouse user. Okay, there isn't much more, I think. So I want to do the same things with the keyboard. So I just press tab, and I'm on the home link now. I'm on the submit button now. Okay. Focus styles are different here because it's a button, I guess. And now what I want to do is I want to trigger this button, because if I click, we saw that this modal pops up and I can close it. Now I want to use the keyboard here. So I press enter or space, both should work. And then what this component is doing right, and I can see that by the outline, which is on the close button, it shifts focus to the modal window. And this is something that doesn't happen on a lot of sites. And what that means is that usually if I press enter and I press tab again, the focus indicator will go to streamers and then archive. But actually, I would expect it to be in this modal window. And that's something that we have to do manually in JavaScript. So we have to use the focus method to shift focus from the button in that modal window. And this is actually happening here. So that's pretty cool. You can see now that the focus indicator is gone. And that's because this red button here doesn't have any focus style. So if I shift back, you can see the input fields are clearly visible.
But not the button, yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I'm correct, one cool thing is also that you're trapped inside the modal with the focus, which I think I integrated some weeks ago. So because normally I think you also have the issue that when you tap outside of a modal, you often get lost in a long scrolling page in the background, and often you want to stay inside the modal until you decide what to do, close it or submit it.
Exactly, yeah. That's a nice feature because you don't get lost in the browser or somewhere else in the page. You're only where you're supposed to be. So this is a nice thing. And also what I usually try to test is if I press the escape key, it should close. And this is really important, it's critical, the focus should shift back to the element which triggered the modal window. So to the submit
Okay.
button back.
I have no idea if this works.
It works.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty great. A bit boring because it just worked. Yeah, okay. So
I'm sorry.
what I would like to see on your side is better focus style. So this is not really clearly visible because you have this thin outline on this gray background.
So does this mean now on the archive page that I don't have an outline defined, or
Yes,
yeah,
you're just using the default outline.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you didn't remove it, but you also didn't override it. I will just give you an example of it's not like the best website ever, but it's just one website that I built where you can see the focus outlines. So you can see that the hover styles here is just a great color here, like this basic animation, nothing special. But if I use the keyboard, you can see how clearly visible everything is. I can see where exactly on the page I am. There's one bug in this aubergine colored thing. It's not clearly visible. I have to fix that. But other than that, it works pretty
Yeah, it's
well.
very clear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
nice to see the difference and how it could look, and I
yeah,
think it's a good example. Yeah, we should also put that into the show notes.
And mouse users don't have to bother with that. They don't see it because I'm using the focus visible pseudo class here. Yeah, and focus visible usually just applies for when it's needed. So when someone uses the keyboard, there are some exceptions like input fields. So everyone sees the outline. Also mouse users on input fields, but other than that, it shouldn't bother mouse users too much. Yeah. So okay. Yeah, it's not like this could be improved as well. So focus is now on this card here. And what would be nice, I mean, I really like this animation here. So you could also use it on focus, for example. So if I'm focusing, that it moves just like
Did it also?
the mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, again, just something that's clearly visible. You could use the red color here, for example. It would probably look nice and help people navigate on your site.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you're interested who uses the keyboard, so people with a limited range of motion, so some people who can't move their arm too much, or people with just one arm, for example, or also switch device users. Stephen Hawking, for example, he was a switch device user. So he had, I don't know exactly how many it was, but I think he had 2 buttons on his wheelchair, and pressing one button would shift focus, and pressing the other button would activate the link. There's a YouTube channel called Casts by Google and the Google accessibility team, and it's just like 5 to 15 minutes videos, short videos about accessibility. It's really great by Rob Dodson. He's fantastic, and the videos are really fantastic. And they also have one about switch devices where he shows a switch device. Let me just quickly show you how it looks like. Yeah.
That are available.
This is just one example. It's pretty much like 2 buttons, and all they do is shift focus from one item to the other, and you can press another one. And there are also switch devices that are, for example, at the back on a wheelchair, so you can control it with your head.
Oh, really?
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You can press one button to jump from item to item. I really recommend watching this video because it also shows how you can use switch devices with more complex form controls, like a range slider, for example. It's really, really, really interesting stuff.
Okay, so let's make sure I'm going to add these also to the show notes. And yeah, it's now on my list to check it out as well. I think it's always, you often tend to think of the people you know in your team or your client or the people you build the website for, and you think to yourself, yeah, there are maybe blind people or people who have some some issues reading your website, but it's often so far outside of your focus that you tend to neglect it. But I think it really helps to see the devices people use, see how they look like, maybe also see a lot more people. I remember some years ago I was at the Beyond Tellerrand conference. There was one developer, I can't remember his name, but he was blind and he did a talk. I think he's quite famous. I'm sure you know him. But
Marco Zehe probably.
Yeah,
I
could
don't know.
be. But he was doing a talk standing blind on the stage and showing how he was navigating with his iPhone websites and things like that. And those things really help to see, okay, there are really actually people out there using your website like this. And yeah, it often gets out of your focus, but that's why I also wanted to have you here to brings back the focus for me for the things that I do, and maybe also for people watching, that we more think about those things again.
Yeah, definitely. This is also a reason why diversity is so important. So that you have a diverse team, and that you also hire people with disabilities and also people with different backgrounds. This can just improve your product. I have to go in a few minutes, but I did just 2 things that I want to show you. No, let me say 3 things. The first thing is, if you want to get started, install the DevTools extension for your browser. Just run it, try to understand what the issue is about. Click the more information button where they provide information about this issue. If you don't understand what it is about, try to Google it. Usually you will find some information. If you don't find it, find me on Twitter and I will help you with the issue. That's one of the things. And I want to show you 2 more things that you could improve on your site to finish up. And the first thing is, let me just quickly switch this side back. If I use the tab key here, if I start tabbing here, you can see that before I can jump to the heading or to the logo, I get some hidden links here. And it says Inhalt, which means content. So this allows me to directly jump to the main content of the page. So I'm skipping the header area, because if you're using a site a lot, if you're browsing through a site, you don't want to go through all the content in the header area. Usually you want to jump directly to a specific part of your page, like the content. And this is called a skip link. So you could implement a skip link on Larastreamers. This would be great, because then you don't have to tab through all. So that's something that you could add here, a skip link, which allows you, because if you press tab and there's a skip link that says skip the content, then you have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 tabs less in order to get to the main content. And another thing that I noticed when I prepared a little bit, because I did, is, I mean, there are 100 issues here because of the text. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it looks bad, but it's not that bad. If you increase the content ratio here, then 60 issues are gone.
Yeah, okay.
It's, mostly just color. But it also says links must have discernible text. And this means that there are links that have no accessible text. And if we highlight one of those links,
let's check it out.
It's that YouTube link here. So if I find that and I zoom in a little bit, you can see there is a link. There's no text. So there's no description for the SVG and there's no other text in here. And just to give you an idea what this means for a screen reader user.
Voiceover on Safari, Larastreamers link, archive, out of link, visited link. Larastreamers.
Let's just use the, no.
Links menu, heading menu. Heading level 2, heading level 2.
Did you see that? I just skipped directly to the heading. So I didn't have to go through the whole navigation. I just used this list of headings. And now let me navigate to one of these cards.
And the YouTube channel, Just Steve King, GP. Thanks for stopping by. Link. Show 51 streams. Link. UTV and K7HFMCAPIMGIDXQ. You are currently on.
So what it does here is that if there is no link text, then it tries to fall back to some other attributes. For example, the title attribute. If there's no title attribute, it falls back to the href attribute, or at least parts of the path. And I guess that this is what was the hash of the YouTube video.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, the YouTube ID.
Yes.
Okay, this is bad. This was social. The text. YouTube.
Voiceover off.
And again, you don't have to use the screen reader because getting started with screen readers takes some time. I mean, it's not that complicated, but it takes some time. What helped me here, or how I found the issue, was just by using XDev
the
tools.
XDev tools.
Yes, I mean, you could also use Lighthouse or Wave tool, for example. There are some other tools as well, but this is just my personal favorite.
Yeah, at least I should start using one of them and then go on from there and see what fits best, what I like. And now that I know that this exists, I can easily install it and try it out myself. So thanks already for sharing that.
Exactly, because that's the point. You don't have to learn anything about, the standards or any software. You just install this tool and it tests your site, and it's really well for developers, because it tells us, here's an issue, here's an explanation, here's where it's located, here's how to fix it, and now fix it. So
yeah, that's how we like to work, right?
Exactly. So even if you're not an expert, it will probably work for you.
So was this all the things that you wanted to show?
Yeah. I mean, you did a pretty great job with this site. It's well structured. This is usually one of the issues that I found on most sites, is that it's not well structured. There are no landmarks. There are no headings. You did that really well. And also most of the links have an accessible name. If there's one thing that I would improve here, it's the keyboard accessibility. So better focus styling, and maybe you want to add skip link.
Yes, I have 2 full post-its with things I need to take care of and I want to add to the show notes. So thank you so much for joining this stream, Manuel. And please, everybody, follow this guy if you're interested in writing good HTML, writing accessible sites. He's the guy to follow. So I will also share your Twitter link in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming, for joining. I learned a lot myself already just in this 1 hour, and I'm pretty sure others have learned something new too. And it's good that this video is now out there and others can check it out as well. And I'm pretty glad we made that happen, and that we also had some time to talk again because it also has been quite some time since we saw each other. So thank you again so much. Is there anything you want to plug, like any other workshop you're doing or any product you have you want to add?
The only thing that I could say is visit my website, html.dev. It's a website about HTML where I take bad code from other websites and I explain why it's bad, of course, without shaming or blaming anyone. So I remove all the clues that would point you to where I copied that, and I explain what's wrong about it, and I also provide you with the better alternative. And I also recently started a newsletter where I share stuff I know about HTML. And I also, more recently, like a week ago, started a YouTube channel where I talk about HTML and how to build accessible front ends. And if you want to check it out, that would be great. HTML on Twitter and on YouTube.
Perfect. We are going to add all those links to the show notes, so check them out somewhere below when you watch this. And with that being said, thank you again so much for joining. It was fun.
Thanks so much for having me.
I have a lot of things not a lot, but a few things I need to improve, and I will definitely do it. And maybe we see each other another time on the stream if you have time. But in the meantime, stay healthy and see you another time.
I would love to come back. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Okay, this was the stream for today. I'm sorry we didn't have some time to check the comments, but we will do this the next time for sure again. I also have already to leave. So with that being said, it was nice. Maybe I'll do another stream next week. I'm not sure, because then I could do the 50s stream in this year, which I think really sounds cool. So maybe I'm doing another stream between Christmas and New Year Eve. But I wish you all Merry Christmas. Have a safe and healthy time with your families, and get back your batteries recharge your batteries for the next year, and see you hopefully soon. So thanks for joining today. Bye. Oh, I got the wrong key.